Well, good evening, Jennifer. How are you? This is Sandy
Hey,
Schoelles with Environmental Coffee
hey,
House.
hey, how you doing, Sandy? It's good to
Good.
see you.
Yeah, it is. We're getting people to join us, and I was trying to share on Facebook, and I am having uh, you get so tired of technical difficulties. Hey, going south, I'm going to add you to the broadcast. Hey, I don't know why your last video I didn't get an announcement. I really get mad. But anyway, I'm trying to share, and the little app that I use for Facebook pages is just giving me problems. Kim, can you share our uh, this to Environmental Coffee House and any climate change groups that you are in, because I'm having the worst time. So, but we got a good show tonight. Jen, you want to explain a little?
Yes, absolutely. So where are we going to go tonight? Um,
Oh.
so the first place we're going to go, there's an article that came out from The Guardian just this last week, and this is about seabed methane in Antarctica. So we've been talking a lot about the Arctic, but now we're going to talk about Antarctica and see about the methane that is kind of coming loose there. And then we're going to talk about a little abstract. I'm actually going to read it verbatim because it's very condensed, but this
Yeah.
will lead into the next article. And this is something from Nature Geoscience. And the title of this abstract is Carbon Loss from Northern Circumpolar Permafrost Soils
Mhm.
Amplified by Rhizosphere Priming. So we're going to learn a little bit
Yes.
about what is rhizosphere priming because it's
Mhm.
actually very important. And that leads us directly into the next article from earth.com, and this is going to get more into that rhizosphere priming, and it says plant roots will increase Arctic CO2 emissions by 40 billion tons. Okay, so this is like a really good example of oops, I forgot something. You know, I don't
Cool.
think that the plant roots were previously calculated, but now they're calculating them.
Yeah. That's neat.
No.
Mhm.
And then we've got one from phys.org, and this is an update on the Norilsk oil spill, the diesel spill up there. A 20,000 ton oil spill is contaminating the Arctic. It could take decades to clean up. So this is an update about that.
Okay.
And then we're going to be talking about some indigenous people up in the Arctic.
Yeah.
And this is from High Country News. And the title is As the Arctic Warms, the Inupiat Adapt. So how native peoples are adapting to a warmer world. They've
Great.
previously just been living in ice. And then last but not least, the man we all love to hate, Trump administration grants approval for Ambler Mining Road. So that's where we're going to go tonight, Sandy.
Great. We have a group. We have quite a good group. If anybody did not do, just do this for me. I can't see it on the Environmental Coffee House group. It's on the page, but I don't see this on the group. And that's where I need to make it a. It needs to be on the group. And thank you everybody for helping, because everything's all. It's just not working for me. So I don't know why. I've been trying to figure this out for days, but all right, Jennifer, let's get started. I did the housekeeping. We said
Yeah.
hello, and Trish and Snork and John Schmidt. Thank you. You're on Coffee House. You're on the page, though, and I need it on the group. Keith and CB. Great. Let's get started. I'm gonna put the article
Okay.
up.
Let's
Alrighty.
take her away. So
Let's
this
take
first
her
article
away.
is from The Guardian. First active leak of seabed methane discovered in Antarctica. Just came out last week.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers say that potent climate heating gas almost certainly escaping into the atmosphere. Well, that's kind of what we've always said. People like to say, oh, don't worry about it. It's all just going to be absorbed by the water. P.S. That acidifies the ocean, so that's not really such a great solution either. But it's true. A lot of it does get taken up by the ocean, but a lot of it goes into the atmosphere as well. So the first active leak of methane from the seafloor in Antarctica has been revealed by scientists. The researchers also found microbes that normally consume the potent greenhouse gas before it reaches the atmosphere had only arrived in small numbers after 5 years, allowing gas to escape. So that's going into the atmosphere. And just do remember, guys, even though the amounts of methane are relatively small, the power of methane, especially when it first is emitted into the atmosphere, is 125 times stronger molecule for molecule than carbon dioxide. Now, a lot of people say, oh no, methane's only 20 times stronger molecule for molecule. It becomes, over time, very quickly as it oxidizes, about 20 times stronger. But it's a lot stronger than carbon dioxide. So a little bit of methane goes a long, long way. So vast quantities of methane are thought to be stored under the seafloor around Antarctica. The gas could start to leak as the climate warms the oceans, a prospect the researchers said was incredibly concerning. I would say so. Mm-hmm. The reason for the emergence of the seep remains a mystery, but is probably not global heating, as the Ross Sea, where it's found, has yet to warm significantly. There's underground volcanoes in that area in West Antarctica too. So, that can always disturb things as, the ground swells from the magma.
Right.
Research has significance for climate models, which currently do not account for a delay in the microbial consumption of escaping methane. It's like every single week we do this show, Sandy, there's always one more thing. One more thing. Current models do not account for this, critical thing, which interacts with a lot of other things. So this active seep was first spotted by chance. It makes you kind of wonder how many others there are. If he just spotted it by chance, there are not very many people in Antarctica, right? By chance, by divers. That's got to be a cold dive. In 2011, but it took scientists until 2016 to return to the site and study it in detail. So that makes you think, well, if there's one, there's got to be others. And, how many divers do we have in Antarctica looking for methane seeps? Probably not a lot, I would say.
No, and it's Oregon State University. I'm so proud of them. They're doing such a great job with this, and it was heartwarming to know that. I mean, it's, scary, but it was heartwarming to know. And that's where my brother went to school.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, okay. So, do you want to continue?
I do want to just note this one point. The release of methane from frozen underwater stores or permafrost regions is one of the key tipping points that scientists are concerned about, which occur when a particular impact of global heating becomes unstoppable, aka run away, right?
Run away.
Methane's, aka run away. Mm-hmm. The methane cycle is absolutely something that we as a society need to be concerned about. And they find it incredibly disturbing. So very little has been known about our Antarctic methane cycle. But the good news, he said, was that the new seep provided a natural laboratory for further research. So I think we probably did enough on that article. I mean, it goes on.
The video.
Let's go ahead and play the video. Pictures are great.
Guys, we have a video from this we thought you'd like, and we're going to play this. We're going to play it for you. It's a 6-minute video, but it's really good. And so sit back, get the popcorn, watch the video, and we'll be back with more.
So we've been researching in Antarctica to understand how it fits into the global climate for a long time. This is an area that's ice covered. In this particular image, you can see there's ice on the surface of the ocean, there's ice on the seafloor in the shallows, and it's an area that's really important to understanding how our global climate functions. It doesn't seem like a very hospitable place to do research in that it's quite cold. The water temperature averages 28 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 1.8 C. But it lends itself to long-term research projects that have been going on, even involving scuba diving, since the mid-60s. One of the most remarkable discoveries we've made over the past few years was, due to some pure happenstance, we found areas that appeared to be leaking methane out of the seafloor. Methane seeps are areas where methane from vast reservoirs underneath slowly percolate out and in general are consumed by microbes, bacteria and archaea, that work together to keep this gas essentially buried in the sediment or turned into carbon dioxide, which is better for us as humans because methane is a greenhouse gas 25 times as efficient at warming our atmosphere than CO2. Now, what we started to find and what we stumbled upon is, you can see in the background some small white patches of what we call microbial mat. Now, this mat is essentially what the surface of the sediment looks like underlying a complex biogeochemical process that goes on underneath. But that process is what keeps methane out of our atmosphere. Now, discovering this was absolute pure luck. We've never discovered a methane seep in Antarctica before, even though it's an area that has vast quantities, maybe as much as a quarter of all of the marine methane on the planet. And yet we've never been able to study the active processes that consume methane, simply because we've never found an active seep and been able to sample it on this far-flung continent. Now, the white mat itself is just a byproduct of the reaction, but it tells us that there's a lot of things going on underneath. Now, the most remarkable discovery wasn't that small patch that you just saw, but instead we found an expansive methane seep on a completely different scale than we were expecting. This is a feature that essentially spread out in a line 210 feet or 70 meters along the seafloor. There was bright red sea stars known as odontaster surrounding the system, but this is a system that allows us to really start to understand Antarctica's methane cycle, and especially considering how much climate change is going to impact the Antarctic continent, allow us to understand how quickly it's going to be able to respond. Now, what we found was that it's actually responding very slowly. Now, already we know these microbes grow very slowly, and it doesn't only happen in cold places, but even in warm places, it takes a long time for them to grow. And we were able to sample this methane seep the first year after it started to form. Now, that's really important because not only had people never found a methane seep before in Antarctica, they've also never found methane seeps when we know exactly when it started. We know this methane seep turned on in 2011, and we're able to sample it 1 year and 5 years after it formed. What we learned from that is that it's taken a long time for the microbes that normally are responsible for consuming or eating 90% of the methane that leaks out of these vast reservoirs. And instead, even after 5 years, methane is still leaking out. In fact, after the first year when we sampled it, there weren't even the microbes that we know consume methane in every other habitat that we've studied. There were some, but not the ones that we were expecting, and not the global most dominant microbes that consume methane and keep it out of our atmosphere. 5 years in, they started to show up, but it was the wrong ones. And so this begs some bigger questions about how does Antarctica differ from the rest of the globe? We already know it's quite different in the animal diversity that's there, but what about the microbial diversity? And if the microbes are not there to actually eat the methane, that methane may make it out into the atmosphere, completely changing the rate and trajectory and impact of methane in our changing climate. Now, what many of these images are showing are little white patches that extend off into the distance. And you can see that this is an area that's quite shallow. It's only about 30 feet deep. And that also means that this methane has the potential to make it into the atmosphere. More than anything, this research has highlighted a need to do more directed research to study how methane released from Antarctica may impact our changing climate, and also provides a mechanism to do that through the discovery of this new methane seep in Antarctica. So one of the reasons we do research in Antarctica in these areas that are quite difficult to get to and quite cold to dive in is to be able to understand the fate of our planet and how our planet changes. Now, this is an area that you can't actually understand the role of Antarctica in the global cycles unless you actually get to Antarctica and study it, which makes this research and exploration of this continent really worthwhile as we try to better understand society's role in a changing ecosystem and feedbacks that may alter the rate at which our climate changes looking forward. It's important to note, while we know why we've added CO2 in the atmosphere and how we've added CO2 in the atmosphere, methane is going up in the atmosphere at a rate that we can't explain and we don't know why. And we hope that with further research, both in Antarctica and other places, on the diversity of things that eat methane and keep it out of the atmosphere, we may better understand how our changing climate is going to continue to change and whether it may change at a much greater rate or what we may hope at the current projected rates without having any sort of increase or decrease driven by methane being released from reservoirs that exist throughout the global oceans.
Oregon State University. Pretty good. Pretty good. Thanks for watching, guys. The group is growing, and I finally figured out how to get the Facebook stuff shared, Jennifer.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Something. So
I
thought that was very interesting, and I had seen it already before, so I could mess around with all this technical stuff. So the next one is, did you want to read the abstract for this is the article? Oh, cookies.
Yeah.
Okay. Carbon loss from northern circumpolar permafrost soils amplified by rhizosphere priming. And of course, Jennifer's going to read the abstract because we don't have access options to this without paying for it. And then we're going to have a more, reach out and touch
a drill
article.
down.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So go for it, Jen.
Yeah. Now this just came out, and this is in nature.com in their Nature Geoscience category. And as Sandy said, carbon loss from northern circumpolar permafrost soils amplified by rhizosphere priming. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is rhizosphere priming and why is it so important. This particular article has, it looks like, at least 15 people contributed to it. So it's classic techno geek speak. It's very condensed, but like all techno geek speak, it's not rocket science. You just have to kind of break it down. So here goes, guys. As global temperatures continue to rise, a key uncertainty of climate projections is the microbial decomposition of vast organic carbon stocks in thawing permafrost soils. Decomposition rates can accelerate up to 4-fold. That's like a pretty big mistake. In the presence, I know, it's just like, this is yet another one.
Yep.
I know, this is yet another one of, oops, I forgot something. So decomposition rates can accelerate up to 4-fold in the presence of plant roots. And this mechanism, termed the rhizosphere priming effect, may be especially relevant to thawing permafrost soils, as rising temperatures also stimulate plant productivity in the Arctic. So talking about the plant roots that are in the soil from all the thousands of years that they've been growing there, plus all the new plants that are growing very quickly as the Arctic warms. That's a lot of biomass, right? However,
biomass.
priming is currently not explicitly included in any model projections. God, where have I heard this before, right?
Yeah.
Of future carbon losses from the permafrost area. So yeah, this is another thing that's not in the models that
No, and
increases decomposition and gas out by 4 times.
yeah,
So
it will be now. It will be now,
if
and then things. Well, let's hope so. I mean, this is
yeah,
relevant research,
it is. Here
and we
we
can.
combine, huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here we combine high-resolution spatial and depth-resolved data sets of key plant and permafrost properties with empirical relationships of priming effects from living plants on microbial respiration, which is basically the breathing and the outgassing of the microbia, I guess.
Yeah.
We show, yeah. We show that rhizosphere priming amplifies overall soil respiration in permafrost-affected ecosystems by 12%, which translates into a priming-induced absolute loss of approximately 40 pg soil carbon from the northern permafrost area by 2100. I love it. 2100 is like everybody's favorite number.
Yeah, right.
So
We
only
say
80,
this
only
every week.
80, right? Only 80, Sandy. We won't be here. Our findings highlight the need to include fine-scale ecological interactions in order to accurately predict large-scale greenhouse gas emissions and suggest even tighter restrictions on the estimated 200 pg anthropogenic carbon emission budget to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees C. I warned you ahead of time. This was classic techno geek speak. And it is. It's hard, it's not friendly, right? It's not easy to understand.
Oh, and
so we
thank
have
you,
another
Snork. Petagrams, the PG. We just didn't spell it out.
is that petagrams?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're
So
learning our
petagrams,
measurements.
anytime you hear like peta anything, just translate that to big, because petabytes, for example, it's like a giant measurement. So petagrams has got to be a giant measurement as well. So it just means it's really huge.
Really huge.
Yeah.
So now we're
So
at
Sandy,
Earth.com.
yeah, we are. We are. And this is actually a more friendly, digestible article about the same thing. Plant roots will increase Arctic CO2 emissions by 40 billion tons. That's a little bit more to the point.
Yeah. There you go. 40 billion tons.
Yeah.
That's all.
40 billion tons.
That's all.
That's right. So this is in earth.com. A new study from Umeå University highlights the uncertainty involved in projecting CO2 emissions from thawing permafrost in the Arctic. Research reveals that CO2 emissions from permafrost have been underestimated. Yay! Good job, team. By billions. We can get into like all Carl Sagan-y. Billions of tons.
Billions.
Billions and billions and billions of tons due to the role of plant roots in microbial decomposition and carbon release. As permafrost thaws across the Arctic, carbon in the organic matter is oxidized to CO2 through microbial activity. Some of this carbon has been stored in the frozen soils for thousands of years. So, Sandy, how much of this should we go through? This is a pretty long article. Should we go through it?
Long, but I'd like to go through just what she said. The study about Frida Cooper is a research scientist at Umeå University and the French National Research Institute for Agriculture, Food and Environment. And she said, we've known about the priming effect since the 1950s, but we did not know whether or not this small-scale ecological interaction had significant impact on the global carbon cycle. That was important.
Right.
That was important.
Right.
And then we go down, and she's talking about exactly what you were reading in the abstract. The analysis shows that the priming effect increases soil microbial respiration by 12%, which will ultimately release the additional 40 billion tons. So we said it, and this article is just more and it's actually not that long, but it's just more. It'll explain to you, and it'll of course be in the information.
Oh, here's a good one, Sandy. The amount of CO2 emissions tied to the priming effect is equivalent to almost a quarter of the remaining carbon budget for human activities. Oops.
So this is just another WASF kind of thing. That is, and it'll go by, it'll go by. Excuse me for a second. My chair is falling down. It'll go by without much fanfare. The mainstream media won't pick any of this up, and maybe we can find it in obscure places on Twitter. Who knows?
Yeah.
But all right, so we'll move on. If you want to move on, we're gonna move on. The next one is Fizzorg, and I have pronounced it Psyorg forever. I have the New York City pronunciation, but guys out there, it is Fizzorg, isn't it? Physics? Yes, I think so. And this one is the follow-up to the Norilsk in Siberia, the storage tank leak, and it talks about how diesel is so much worse. Jennifer, I'll take this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. So, all right, let's see here. So after that storage tank in Norilsk, northern Russia, collapsed in late May, 20,000 tons of diesel fuel was released into the environment. Strong winds caused the oil to spread more than 12 miles from the source, contaminating nearby rivers, lakes, and surrounding soil. The spill perhaps didn't get the international attention it warranted, as it happened in the midst of a global pandemic and just a few days after the death of African-American George Floyd, which sparked a wave of Black Lives Matter protests. But Jennifer, you and I, we reported on it right away. And we have the shows. So if you want to go back and watch them, if you haven't seen them, we have the shows. But this spill was major disaster with serious implications. And, of course, political implications in Russia. I think Putin was pretty pissed at this one. As experts in Arctic ecosystems, we are worried, authors, about the long-term impacts of this diesel spill in such pristine environments where cold, harsh conditions mean that life is limited. While bacteria are known to clean oil spills elsewhere in the world, in the Arctic, their low numbers and slow rates of activity could mean diesel products linger for years, if not decades, Jennifer. Years. And a diesel spill differs from the other spills. Major oil spills, such as that of the Exxon Valdez in 1989 or the Deepwater Horizon in 2010, they typically involve thick, gloopy crude oil that sits on the surface of the seawater. And not this. It says, however, in this recent spill, it involved the thinner, less goopy diesel oil and fresh water, making the cleanup so much more difficult. Diesel oil. Yeah, it's really going to be a worse one. Diesel oil, well, it is. I mean, it contains between 2,000 and 4,000 types of hydrocarbon, the naturally occurring building blocks of fossil fuels. But they break down differently in the environment. Typically, 50% or more can evaporate within hours and days, harming the environment and causing respiratory problems for people nearby. So, you think about Norilsk. It's horribly polluted anyway. And this is just more for these people to take in, and the animals. The wildlife has to take this in. I mean, the wildlife, it's really going to wreak havoc. It says typically 50%. No, I read that for the people. But other more resistant chemicals combined with the algae and the microorganisms in the water and the sink, creating a toxic sludge on the bed of the river or lake. So that gives the impression that the contamination has been removed and is no longer a threat. But this sludge,
No.
yeah, right? No. It's going to be months or years, and it shows in this, the right where it is, and it's horrible. It's dark red, and it spreads along the Barnaya River near Norilsk. It's horrible. It's horrible. And at the bottom of the food chain in rivers and lakes are the microscopic plants and algae that need the sunlight to create energy through photosynthesis. So when the oil first enters the water, it sits on the surface and it forms that sort of oily sunblock. And so these organisms rapidly decrease in number. Zooplankton, tiny animals that feed on them, also eventually die off. So over time, wind and currents help disperse this oily layer, but some oil will sink to the bottom, and with their predators diminished, algae returns in greater numbers. You want to take the rest, Jen?
Sure. Soils in the Russian Arctic harbor fewer organisms than elsewhere in the world, thanks to cold, harsh conditions where the ground is often frozen, liquid water is scarce, and there are few nutrients available. But nonetheless, these soils are still teeming with life and badly affected by oil spills. Initially, oil coats soil particles, reducing their availability to absorb water and nutrients, negatively affecting soil organisms as they are unable to access food and water essential for survival. It's kind of sad, right? This oily coat can last for years as it is very hard to wash off, so often the soil has to be physically removed. Kind of sounds like one of those hazmat cleanups or something. As of July 6th, Nornickel, the mining company that owned the storage tank, says it has removed 185,000 tons of contaminated soil, about 14 times the weight of the Brooklyn Bridge. The soil is being stored on site to be cleaned by certified contaminant experts by early September. Wow, so they're just like scooping up all the soil and they're going to clean it and I guess try and return it to the environment. The cleaned soil will then likely be returned to its original site. Also, 13 Olympic swimming pools worth of fuel contained the water that has been pumped from the river to a nearby industrial site where harmful chemicals will be separated and clean water will likely be returned to the river. This is better than nothing, although toxins will likely remain in both the water and the soil. Over months and years, these toxins will build up within the food chain, starting with microscopic organisms and eventually causing health problems in larger organisms such as fish and birds.
I really cried over this when we first reported on it.
So sad. And this is, of course, directly related to the permafrost thaw that's going on in the Arctic. You know, all that, those 100-degree Siberian days are making the ground unsteady and breaking infrastructure. Some of these small, largely invisible organisms in both the soil and freshwater can, in theory, be part of the solution. Diesel contains carbon, which is essential for all life, and some microorganisms actually thrive on fuel spills, helping break down the contaminants by using the carbon as a food source. I've heard of this. You know, if you can get the things that really like to eat this stuff and actually like to digest it and eat it, that's a really good way to clean it up. Normally, cold Arctic conditions hinder microbial activity and biodegradation. The current Arctic just rolls off the tongue.
Biodegradation.
The current Arctic heat wave may speed up this process, initially enabling oil-degrading microorganisms to grow, reproduce, and consume these contaminants more rapidly than normal. But due to the region's lack of water and the nitrogen and phosphorus needed for growth, even a heat wave can only help these organisms so much. So they say this will probably happen again. No kidding, right? It's only starting only starting. Russian authorities have blamed the collapse on the poor state of the fuel tank.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I mean, maybe the 30-year-old fuel tank had a few problems, but why don't you blame the thawing permafrost? And have requested.
But Russia says it's the tank. They want to blame the company, but Noral Nickel says they want to blame the permafrost. So everybody wants to say it's not our fault. Not our fault.
Right. So they've requested that Nornickel pay voluntary compensation for environmental damage. Nornickel denies negligence and says the fuel tank failed due to rapidly thawing permafrost. Yes, that is true. That is true. If it wasn't for the rapidly thawing permafrost, the tank wouldn't have kind of fallen in a place and it wouldn't have broken open. So
not quite like that anyway.
They're absolutely right.
I think there's enough blame to go around.
Yeah. This spring saw Siberia experience temperatures 10 degrees centigrade warmer than average. With permafrost underlying most of Russia, the region is highly vulnerable to climate warming. Indeed, 45% of all oil and gas extraction fields in the Russian Arctic are at risk of infrastructure instability due to thawing permafrost.
Jennifer?
Without more stringent... Yes?
I want to I have a question about most of Russia on permafrost.
Yes.
Moscow and central, is central Russia is I guess I haven't done enough research on that. Is that actual
Moscow? I don't know. I don't know if Moscow is.
Yeah, they made this statement.
Yeah. Well, sure. I think most of what they're talking about is the Siberian Arctic, right? Yeah, I think that's mostly what they're talking about. I would hope
that they would clarify.
My goodness.
Better.
Do you see this? There's a cat on my lap.
Oh, your little new kitty cat.
Yes, she came to say hello.
See, we can still find joy in the everyday little normalcies of life that are left, which aren't that many.
Yes.
She's got a new baby. I've got a bunch of babies.
Do.
They don't like to come in here when I'm doing this, though. One of them does, but most of them don't. Oh, hi, Groot, by the way, and Scott Mears and Lightning Rod, Kent Deal. A lot of people here with us tonight. Did you want to finish this one?
Yeah, let's just finish it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get this cat off without my... Okay, she has to stay down there for the moment.
It's always so sweet to see these little babies.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
Okay.
Without more stringent regulations to improve existing infrastructure, then more spills are likely to occur, given how rapidly permafrost is melting in these areas and causing unstable ground. It's what we've been saying. While nature and her oil-degrading microbial communities can help clean up our mess, we should avoid relying on largely invisible force that we don't fully understand to fix the much larger human-generated problem. And how can an environment already on the edge of devastation ever fully recover? Well,
that's a good question.
Anybody
has the answer to that one?
I have no idea. We're all fucked up. So there we go. There we have the latest update on Norilsk,
and some
or Norilsk.
Norilsk,
Yeah.
and
Norilsk.
the and Arctic research. I mean, there's just so much more. I was on Reddit, and there's just more than we can cover in this short time to talk about, but we try to bring you the most important things. And the next one, we're going to segue into population of I'm going to show you a picture. Before I actually show you this, I want to show you a graphic, and this is Alaska, and this is where we're going to be talking about all the way at the top where the Inupiat, and it's Utqiagvik. I had it perfectly well down.
We practiced, guys.
We
We
practiced.
practiced before the show.
Oh my gosh.
But some of these names are really hard.
Yeah, but that's where we're talking about, all the way up there. And we thought we'd show you that. And the article in High Country News, which is actually one of my favorites. I really like High Country News. They cover a lot of environmental issues in the west of the United States, but they and so obviously Alaska's part of this. I'm going to pull this up, and I want to read about it. Interesting. It sits at the very top of the United States, saddled against the Arctic Ocean. And it's a bit of a long one, but this is a really good one. The Alaska Native Inupiat are set apart from other indigenous peoples by their subsistence hunting of the bowhead whale. Even today, this unique centuries-old practice determines the social structure. It reflects community values and supplements the people's nutrient-rich diet. Nearly all of Utqiagvik's roughly 5,000 residents, the majority of whom are Inupiat, rely on hunting to support their way of life, which is why Harry Barrett Jr., an Inupiat whaling captain and Antarctic-Alaska mayor, finds it odd when outsiders try to explain things to him. He says, "I'm reading about this research on bowhead whales in different countries," he told me one afternoon in February. "I met Bauer in a mahogany-clad office decorated with relics of his hometown, mounted walrus tusks, paintings of icebergs at sea, and a portrait of Brouwer and Utqiagvik's first mayor, Eben Hobson, standing with other community members under the gateway to the Arctic. Two huge whale bones arranged in a dramatic arch. People assume we're entering this new Arctic, when in reality, we have faced adversity for thousands of years. Here are two words I read about this morning," he said, pointing to a yellow Post-it on his desk inscribed with the words hyperboreous and parsimonious. Until he Googled them, Bauer didn't even know what it meant, though he is, in fact, a Hyperborean, an inhabitant of the far north. "Scientists all speak a different language," he said. They do. While serving as mayor of North Slope Borough, which encompasses 8 separate communities and about 10,000 people, Brouwer also chaired the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission. And the AEWC was formed in 1977 after the federal government, worried about low bowhead whale numbers in the Bering Sea, they banned the Inupiat's subsistence hunt. In response, the local whalers conducted their own census, which proved that the whales were being undercounted by their own census. And this proved that the whales were being undercounted by thousands when they swam underneath in the ice. The Inupiats research resulted in an increased quota. This anecdote is a well-worn story in Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow. Oh, Barrow, Alaska. Okay, that's why it sounds so familiar. A point of pride marking a time when the Inupiat bested the federal government by showing more precise knowledge of their own lands and waters. Isn't that cool? Traditional whaling is practiced in tune with unpredictable weather of the Arctic. And the wind pushes floating ice near the shoreline ice. The whalers must wait, sometimes for weeks, until it shifts again. And these people have been doing this forever. In the last 2 centuries, the climate has been severely altered by human forces, but it has always been changing in some form here, according to the Inupiat. Evidence of past ecosystem shifts is preserved in the great tusks of a mammoth found in the perennially frozen earth and in oral histories repeated like mantras. Wow, that's pretty cool. The term climate change strikes a different tone up here. Life below 0 degrees Fahrenheit has always been challenging. So the Inupiat story is defined by adaptation. When the mammoth became extinct, the Inupiat adapted. When Western influences crept north, the Inupiat replaced their dog sleds with snow machines, their seal oil lamps with electricity. Now, I don't know how great that was, but that's what happened. Today, the Arctic is warming at twice the global average, necessitating a new era of adjustments in life on land and sea. And the weaker sea ice endangers hunters, while melting soil threatens homes and city infrastructure. The encroaching sea is eating away at the shoreline. What other choice do we have? Carrie Sikua Erickson, an Inupiat science liaison at the Village Corporation, said, "People assume that we're entering this new Arctic when in reality we have faced adversity for thousands of years. We've always been able to adapt and be resilient. This is no different." I hope they're right, but I don't know with the climate change and the atmospheric changes. The Arctic is ground zero for climate change, is warming more rapidly than the rest of the planet because of a positive feedback loop called Arctic amplification, which we've talked about quite a bit on this channel. Rising global temperatures melt the reflective surfaces of snow and ice each year, exposing the darker areas they cover. And the open water and bare ground absorb sunlight rather than reflect it. So this absorbed light creates the heat, melting more snow and ice. So last year, temperatures in Yukvik and the state of Alaska broke the federal government's 120-year record. The shift has happened so quickly in the north that it has outrun the research tools used to measure it. And there you go again. The models, the research tools, happening faster than previously expected. Right, Jen? In 2017, It changed so fast that the NOAA warned scientists that the data was potentially flawed, but the data proved accurate. It was the area's warmest recorded temperature to date.
Wow.
Yeah. Nobody disputes that things change. Alaska climatologist Rich Toman said, "The question is, why are they changing now? Why aren't there mammoths on the North Slope now?" You can't answer the question without invoking greenhouse gases. From a Western science perspective, that is the only conclusion. The Arctic lost 641,000 square miles of sea ice in the month of March alone. An area roughly the size of Alaska, according to the National Snow and Ice Data Center records. Warmer temperatures also make for a later freeze and an earlier breakup of the ice, shrinking the time frame for spring whaling. Whaling is the pinnacle of Inupiat culture and the subsistence lifestyle. It takes place in spring and fall when bowhead whales migrate past. Inupiat hunters say the whales give themselves to worthy hunters, so preparation is year-round and meticulous. Year-round and meticulous. It is the way of life. Community members, the women carefully craft sealskin boats sewn together with caribou tendon, and whaling crews clean out their ice cellars. There's nothing that is not used, Jennifer. Everything in an animal is used. Community members store whale and other raw meats in traditional below-ground refrigerators dug about 20 feet into the permafrost. Both climate change and urban development are now causing some of the cellars to thaw, and that's spoiling the meat. So, see, they're going to have to adapt and change, or they're going to have to reuse refrigeration, which, if there's even power to use it. It's a nice picture. See how they join together to tow a bowhead whale to shore. See, and this is culture. This is what they've been doing for thousands of years. Each spring, hunters use ice picks to build trails over frozen sea ice. Once the paths are smooth, they drive snowmobiles several miles to reach the open water. At the ice's edge, they assemble camps, and then they wait for a bowhead to pass. As soon as the whale is spotted, the crew slide their sealskin boats into the water, and a crew member attempts to harpoon the animal. When a whale is struck, the captain signals other crews by VHF radio. Other hunters rally to the boat, and everyone pulls the whale onto the ice shore. But landing a bowhead has become increasingly dangerous. Each whale weighs up to 120,000 pounds and must be pulled onto less stable sea ice. And I think that in the interest of time, we want you to read the rest of the article because it is quite long and it's really good. And this magazine is really, really good. I like it. The 5,000 residents, they rely on hunting to support their way of life. You can't, you just can't dismiss that. They can't become vegetarians or vegans. This is their way of life. And it's not going to change, but it's being forced to change by climate change, by degradation,
faster
by
than
pollution.
expected.
Yep. It is. Does you want to look at, maybe we can look at the chat a little bit and see what people are talking about. And I think that Lightning Rod said it will be sudden and catastrophic. It's pretty obvious in the Earth's history. So I guess some people were listening. You know, the chats, they just love. They love to have their all. And hi, Hoople's cat. He says reality is they are burning fossil fuels up there and using motors. Just saying, from actual experience. Well, they are. They changed. But if they had to go back, they could, and acclimate very quickly. Adaptation is what they're all about, right?
Yeah. They're living very close to nature. You know, they really are.
And I think
they're only like
go.
one step removed with modern conveniences, but, you know, they're still sticking to traditional ways of life, more or less.
I think so. And they can go back. They have the wherewithal to go back to those traditional methods. They did it for thousands of years.
Yeah. But things that they've been depending on are no longer dependable. That's the thing.
How do you pull the 120,000 pound whale on ice? That's, you know, it's really sad. And those are the people I feel really sad for. The people that are losing generations and generations of a way of life.
Yeah, no, it's really sad. You know, it's going away. And they have a lot of infrastructure on permafrost as well. You know, their pipes are not buried, but they are elevated on little stands, right? And that's also on permafrost. They did have
something in that. They actually, in the end of that article, they do talk about that. So you guys really should read the article when you get to it. Because we're going to segue to this next one, because we're at 55 minutes. We're going to segue to this next one. This is from Arctic Today, which we do use quite a bit. And I was reading about a approval for a 211-mile road for mining in Alaska. And the Republicans in Alaska are, while they sit there and they say it's all about job creation, it's all about money and greed. And I don't know why the Alaskans continue to, to them, maybe it is they're voting in their best interest because it's jobs, but they're destroying their state. And this is really, to me, it's really sad that this is happening. And Jennifer, you want to start this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an article that came out very recently, just like 2 days ago, in Arctic Today, and it's about the man we love to hate. Trump administration grants approval for Ambler Mining Road. The controversial road would serve a new mining prospect, but also cut through a national park and the habitat of North America's largest caribou herd. That's very sad.
It is. I can't stand it.
Yeah. So the Trump administration on Thursday approved the controversial plan to build a 211-mile road into a remote part of the Arctic-Alaska to enable mining development there. The Bureau of Land Management, in conjunction with the U.S. Army Corps and engineers and other cooperating agencies, released its record of decision on the Ambler Mining District Industrial Access Project. So this road, which the state of Alaska plans to build, is intended to make mining development commercially feasible in the isolated Ambler Mining District in northwest Alaska. The area is rich in copper and other minerals, but there is no road or waterway access. So they're going to open it up. Every single last piece of thing that they can open up and destroy, they will. The road is highly controversial because it would cross through environmentally important areas, including the range of Western Arctic caribou herd, currently the largest in North America. So it would also cross a section of Gates and the Arctic National Park and Preserve, the nation's northernmost national park. And many critics question the project on economic and fiscal grounds, arguing that the state should not be spending money in this way to prop up private companies. Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Duh.
What do you think about that?
What do you think? And so I don't know where we are.
Sad, right? The mining company most involved in the Ambler district is Vancouver-based Trilogy Metals Incorporated. It has partnered with an Australian company, South 32, to pursue the Ambler project. In a statement, the Department of the Interior hailed the project as Road to Resources. Oh, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
all
Road
right,
to
so
Resources. No.
It's
No.
good. It's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Right
Road
thing.
to rape the earth.
Yeah, again, I don't live in Alaska. You don't live in Alaska. We're just saying this. It doesn't sound good to us, and jobs can be there. There can be jobs in different industries. There have to be. We can't just do this to that state, but we are. And there's your little kitty. There's your little kitty.
I know. She just is such a love bug. So this little pussycat, just a segue, guys, this pussycat that I just got, I've only had her a week. Look how sweet she is. And she's a Manx, and she was in the pound for 2.5 months. Poor baby.
Gosh.
So I rescued her, and
What
she
made you
is
do it?
so grateful. Well, because my other pussycat ran away, so I needed a new pussycat right away. I mean,
Gosh.
it was very sad.
It
I
is
couldn't
very
bear
sad.
it.
I knew
It was
that
very
pussy.
sad.
That was the cat I met when I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
You did
so
meet that
sorry,
pussycat.
Jennifer. I don't let my cats
I know.
out. I don't let
I'm
them
not
out
going to
because
let
they'll
this
get
one.
eaten.
Yeah.
here.
So
But
anyway, let's continue here because this is pretty interesting because it's all
yeah,
about the
well, I
man we
think
love to hate.
I think I'm on the
President
wrong
Trump
article.
has long recognized why investments in infrastructure are vital to meet the urgent need for critical minerals, says this one guy. The Trump administration's success today is a game changer for our nation's ability to secure American prosperity and national security. Oh, so it's a good thing. All right. You just got to keep that perspective. Rape
Yeah,
of the earth, it's a good thing.
yeah, it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a great thing.
yeah, and where's
Oh,
all
and
this
then,
stuff going to go? Overseas? Is it even going to be
yeah,
used
I
in
have
the
no
United
idea.
States?
They're just going to ruin the last pristine wilderness we have left.
Mm.
They talk about something Lisa Murkowski said, the senator up there. Federal approval of the Ambler Road is both timely and significant for Alaska's future. Oh, so it's a good thing. All right. We just have to keep repeating that. It's a good thing.
She's a sellout. I don't like her.
I know.
I
She's
don't, and she
total
comes,
sellout.
yeah, and
Total
her
sellout.
family has been in politics, and she,
Yeah.
while she's made some questionable decisions, opening
Yeah.
Anwar. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really sad. It's such a, my bucket list
Yeah.
was to get up there and to go to
Yeah.
Greenland and to go to Alaska. And I don't think my bucket list will ever be fulfilled, but at least I can live vicariously through people that live there, like Jim Massa of Science Talk with Jim, and Torstein going south, who lives in Greenland, and we can definitely well, I do, live
Mhm.
through their experiences, and I may not be able to see them all. And I had the wrong article, by the way. I don't know what happened to the one
Oh,
I
okay.
so that's why I didn't put it up, because this art, I think I
Oh, okay.
goofed up with the Arctic Today one, but the other one I had was
Yeah.
it
So
go ahead.
I'm almost done with it because there are a
Yeah.
couple of little things. Oh, and then this is like disgusting. I thank President Trump and Secretary Bernhardt for recognizing the importance of domestically sourcing the materials and the need for power to power our nation's renewable energy revolution. So it's a good thing. It's
Oh
a good thing.
boy.
Just keep repeating it. It's a good thing. But the
Yeah.
tribal governments along the proposed road route are vehemently opposed to the plan, and they and the environmental groups continue to fight it. Well, I'm glad they're fighting it, but I don't think that they're going to win. They're not going to prevail because it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Greed
No
says it's a
name.
good thing.
Hi, no name.
The state's willingness.
Yeah,
Hi, no
sorry.
name. The state's willingness to spend public funds on private projects so clearly does not serve the public interest. It should not be alarming to all Alaskans. So this is some official said. As the communities of the region have stated again and again, the impacts to the region's water, food, and cultural sovereignty are unacceptable. Alaska's wealth is in our lands, waters, and people, and we will not allow the state to trade that wealth for multinational companies' profit.
Hmm.
So that's that.
Yeah, the
Net,
article
net.
I had was, let's see, it was similar, but I think it was same publication. Mine was the Trump administration seeks to greenlight the controversial Alaska mine, and it was the they approved
Okay.
the copper. Yeah, I don't know what happened to the other one, but the Alaska copper and gold mine that the Obama administration had tried to block over environmental concerns. All you can sit there and say that Obama might have sucked, but he didn't suck here. And this is another one with an 82-mile road system paves the way for another final decision in as little as 30 days for the project, which is owned by Canada's Northern Dynasty Minerals. So Canada, you're in on this too. And it's called Pebble Limited Partnership. No, another one. This is the company that wanted access to access the mine using icebreakers to cross Alaska's largest lake. but the Army Corps of Engineers determined a road skirting the north side of the lake was environmentally preferable. Of course, native organizations along that land, along the route, have vowed to prevent Pebble from using it, which could tie the project up in legal wrangling, and we hope so. Friday's decision came a day after the Trump administration approved a plan for another one, which is what we were just talking about, the 211-mile mining access road through the Brooks Range foothills to a minerals-rich area in the northwest of the state. So we have covered quite a bit with this tonight, and I don't know if you can hear our little closing music or how loud it is, but we have been on for an hour and 6 minutes, and maybe we'll look at some comments. Jen, you hear this music?
No, I can't hear it from this vantage point. I have to imagine. I just have to imagine it.
Okay. I was hoping it wasn't too loud. I don't know if it is or not. It's just something new I'm trying for when we are ending. Mike Olinger is with us. Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Pebble Mine. Robert Glenn Ketchum's photographic activism. Mike, we want to have you on with us.
Totally.
Fascinating, yes.
He is full of information.
He sure is. And Jim McHenry's here. He says basically it's the new gold rush of pillaging the environment that continues now. And hi, Copy Cooney. Hi, Copy Cooney. And Donald McCarthy's with us. And Hoople's cat from Canada. He says that Space Farce will mine the asteroids next. We all rent everything and live in tin cans, buying oxygen and algae cakes. Well, that's exciting to think about. So we appreciate all of you. It is insane. Karen Reese says it's insane what they're doing. And Rich Diana, how you doing, hon? Capitalism needs growth to survive. The Arctic is filled with untouched resources. A marriage made in a swamp. Well, in my opinion, if we don't get rid of Trump, we will not have too many national resources left, no matter what they just did for their photo op at the national parks. I think that was just throwing us a bone to make us think that they care. And then they get Ivanka Trump. She got her photo op with no mask at the closed national park. But they can have their photo ops, right? It's disgusting. Yeah. I can't stand them. Oh, Trish wants to know what your kitty's name is.
Oh, well, she came with the name of Amelia, and she's 5 years old, and she's had kittens, and you can see because she's just a little loose in the undercarriage, and she is just the sweetest little thing. I just adore her. And when my other kitty ran away on the full moon in the solstice, he was such a tomcat. He had to go and explore, and it was just all too much for him, and he couldn't bear it. So he left one night, and I was absolutely devastated and heartbroken, and I really wanted to get another pussycat. And I was just waiting, and I saw her, and I thought she was perfect. So I'm so happy about getting my new pussycat.
That's great. I have 5 of them, and you know how mine ended up. They're all found or wandered onto the property and never left, at least the last one. But well, I thank you. We have quite a group with us, and we thank you so much for joining us and listening to our Arctic report that we like to do on Sundays, because not a lot of other people do it. And if we're consistent, maybe we'll have a voice get out there a little more than just the echo chamber we seem to be in. Crazy cat ladies, Hoople says. You have a cat, Hoople. He's got a cat up there in Canada. He knows. But see, we got everybody talking about their cats. Kim has 3 inside and 1 outside. yeah, we love our pets, you know. Yes, people can say, oh, pets are just more things that humans exploit, but at least we take care of them. And if my cats were exploited, they were feral. So I don't feel guilty because I saved them. So Jen, you've got some any closing comments?
Well, it's fascinating to watch how quickly things are melting down, as usual. And I'm also fascinated how many times things have not been accounted for in the models. Just in this show alone, there were 2 major things that had not yet been accounted for in the models. So it just goes to show you, just because you have a model doesn't mean it is really worth anything, because reality is very, very, very complicated. And we think that we've got it all kind of wrapped up in the models, but we're just really kind of beginning. So the models need a lot of work, and we just have to keep watching this ever cascading demise into chaos.
Well, we'll keep up with it for you guys.
Oh.
And as a closing statement, Going South says, I'm happy with 2100, my pet walrus. Whatever that means.
Going South, we love you. We do know it.
Yeah.
We love you.
So guys, thank you for coming. I'm live on Tuesday night, and then on Thursday, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Tuesday, but on Thursday, I have a special guest, Nicole Sandler from the Nicole Sandler Show, who is has a talk show, but used to be a rock and roll DJ and a producer. She's done interviews with everyone. Bruce Springsteen, I believe. I mean, she's done. Oh yeah,
goodness.
And she's going to join us. I'm
Fabulous.
a mod on her show during the week. She's on Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and I mod her YouTube channel for her with 2 other gals, other people, Jabbermocky and Diane Russell, and it's been a great experience. So be here Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesday night will be 9:30, but Thursday will be earlier for Nicole because she needs to get to bed earlier than I do. So peace out, everybody. Jennifer, I love you.
I love you too.
All of you guys. So thank you so very much.